So welcome everybody. So today we're going to discuss the state of retail industry, which is my passion, and we will discuss things like digital transformation, covering also strategies, innovation, and trends in the market. And to share with us all these topics and discuss with you guys as well, we are extremely grateful to welcome three panelists who have extremely large experience in the industry. So I will first introduce you to Caris Marquez. Caris, can you say hi? So Caris, she's currently VP of Fashion at eBay. She's leading the whole vision for the vertical. She has over 20 years experience where she worked at different companies such as Sears, Sam's Club, and Levi's just before eBay. Our second panelist is Sneha. Hello, can you wave?
Everyone, hi.
So Sneha, she's the VP of Product at Sephora, where she's heading innovation specifically for digital products, data products, and MarTech. She was also, before that, previously, she was leading the team of the last mile delivery at Walmart Labs. And lastly, we have Parvez. So Parvez, he's working at the Home Depot as a DMM. He's responsible for leading the transformation and omnichannel for the BAS business. And he also held previously a series of leadership positions at different companies, some being Wayfair, Grainger, and many others. So that said, I hope we gathered some great people for you today. And again, I want to really thank them for being there. And thank you guys as well for participating. So we'll get started. Is that okay with everybody? All right. So the first topic we would like to address is the fact that today, the retail industry has seen a big shift, especially with the impact of the COVID, right? So we all know that, where we've seen stores going empty and more integration of the digital behaviors into our lives. So what do you think are the components of an efficient experience which can allow a retailer to maintain a competitive advantage? Shall we start with Charis?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So, at eBay, we are a platform that is for buyers and sellers. So yes, we sell ultimately to enthusiasts and collectors, but we also have sellers and they're part of our ecosystem. So when we really think about what's needed in today's world that was a little bit different than before, or more exacerbated than before, it's really about confidence and trust. And I don't think that's just for eBay. I think we went into a world where we had a set of beliefs and they all got flipped upside down, right? So there's fake news, there's all these things out there that in the world, we're a little more suspicious, and so I think within retail, a key component is that having trust and confidence when you're making a purchase or if you're selling something. And for eBay also, we think a lot about connection and community and how do you start to foster that? Because a lot of that, we were all holed up in various rooms and offices in our houses, and how do we start to reconnect people again? So as we think about moving forward and being competitive, it's, how do we start to yes, provide the technology that supports these things, but also think about the personal a little more.
As Charis mentioned, a lot of unexpected things happened that we were not prepared for. But I think in retail, preparing for the unexpected is what makes the customer experience efficient, right? So, and that includes two major components amongst many things else. One is creative people who are able to anticipate the changes that is going to come and pivot in time and knowing when to prioritize and reprioritize things because the ecosystem around them is changing, which also means the appetite for taking risk and making sure that we are okay, that we're taking a risk because we anticipate changes. The second thing is technology that can adapt and scale, preparing for the unknown and building solutions that have strong foundational building blocks that can be leveraged for multiple use cases. So being in the product team, I think one of the key principles that we have is like, yes, you are building something for now, but also build for like 10 years in the future in a world of Iron Man and like all the cool things, because you don't know what's going to change. So how do you build for the future as well? And in my previous life, as an example, we had a reservation system for booking online grocery slots. So when COVID hit and we had to have slots for like COVID vaccinations, we were able to repurpose what we had from an online grocery reservation system to like a COVID vaccination shots as well. So which was kind of creative because of course we didn't plan to use the reservation system for something like this, but we had a strong foundation that we were able to pivot. So I think those are the two key things to make sure that we have a competitive advantage.
Parvez, what is your point of view?
Yeah, first of all, happy to be here and just excited to be on this panel. So thank you, Vanina, for having me also. So as you mentioned, like, till recently I was working with Depot, and in fact, a few weeks back, I started working for a couple of PE firms, helping them think about kind of like omnichannel and DTC. I think it was clear, like, during COVID that there are certain categories. First of all, the digital adoption has gone through the roof for pretty much every business, right? Even if it was small before, I think digital has now become even more important, and it was accelerated in COVID. I think it also kind of like showed that certain categories over-indexed on digital penetration, but at the same time, it showed that certain categories, no matter what, do require that omni-channel physical presence, right? So a good example, at least in the bath space, like vanities, we never realized, but people were so comfortable buying big and bulky vanities online that it just went to the roof, right? Yeah. But at the same time, then there were other categories that required some level of human interaction, or just because from a logistics or from a P&L perspective, it is impossible to make money by not having them in a store. A good example is toilets. Like toilets, the price point is $100. It is a freight item, and the shipping cost is almost $60 if you're shipping it, right? So clearly, like it showed that certain categories, they were ready for adoption, and COVID just opened up the floodgates. But at the same time, it said, hey, certain categories, no matter what, it required that omni-channel presence, especially for a retailer like a Home Depot, right? So I think at least for us, I guess what we've realized is pricing, availability, and delivery promise is kind of like table stakes. Like, Amazon has set the bar for all of us that, hey, listen, like that for me is just people are taking that for granted. You have to be priced competitively. You have to have it in stock, and more than often than not, it should be free shipping, right? I think the other big thing that I think I would say that we've realized is important for companies to have is a very well-defined assortment strategy in terms of what are the items that purely make sense to be much more store-centric or brick and mortar centric. What assortment could be an extension online, and then which assortment purely, honestly, can just live online, right? So if you think of something like a faucet, like, we have thousands of faucets online. It's a small parcel item. Typically we can afford to ship free, same day, next day. But in a physical store, I can only show 200 SKUs, but online I can show 20,000 SKUs, right? So for us, I think those were key elements that we realized are very important, especially to be efficient while still giving the customer what they want in a much more omni-channel environment.
So be prepared, and looks like that you all learned a lot of things during that time. And so Parvez, you mentioned a couple of times about omnichannel. I know this is your area, pet pit. So can you tell us a little bit more about what will be the main the main components as well for a good, effective omnichannel strategy. Now, knowing that omnichannel has been out there for many, many years already, I mean, but there's still a lot of retailers who are trying to figure out at least how to optimize at best the real omnichannel experience.
Yeah, sure. I think the interesting thing is all of on the panel are ex-Sears alumni. I think we just realized that. And like back in 2008, when at least I was at Sears, like we were talking about omnichannel there, right? So to your point, yeah, it's like 15 years since then, and we are still talking about omnichannel, and I'm sure like attribution and stuff. And I think Sneha might hit on I think personalization. I think that, and again, she'll talk about it, but I think that is extremely important in terms of how can you personalize the experience in a omnichannel environment where customers are seamlessly moving across different touch points, right? So I think she'll speak on that. For me, like I think what I think is equally important is how do you kind of like then continue that promise of delivering that. So if a customer now knows what they want and we offer them that personalized experience, how can we then follow that up with a very awesome, scalable, cost-efficient demand fulfillment backend, right? So I feel like that is a place where I'm seeing a lot of multi-channel retailers start accelerating the investments. I mean, if you look at what happened at Target, for example, if you look at what happened at even like Dollar General, like they're hiring people from Amazon supply chain, right? Because they're realizing that, hey, you know what? I have to figure out a seamless way to fulfill the demand that I'm generating in an omnichannel environment, right? So I think having a well-defined supply chain and inventory strategy, I think is now pretty foundational.
Yeah.
I think a lot of multi-channel retailers, unfortunately, are still playing catch up. Whether it is delivery from store, is my store an inventory location? Do I need to have multiple DCs? What is my drop ship versus my in-stock own inventory, right? I feel like that's the next place where there is an opportunity to keep on optimizing the true demand fulfillment of omnichannel demand.
All right. So Sneha, as Parvez mentioned about personalization, can you give your perspective attached to that?
Thank you, Parvez, for teeing up. I think, to be honest, I think we are beyond omnichannel now, right? Like we are in a phase where we have to reach the customers where they are, how they are, and the way they want to be reached. So it really, I think we're still sometimes in like in-store, online, same-day delivery, buy online, pick up in store, ROPIS, like we have moved beyond that stage where we're like, irrespective of whether you're in this world or virtual world, we are going to be there for you and represent who we are the way you want us to be. And optimizing for it to understand, the customer behavior and personalizing it based on every single individual touch point is the key to like making sure that the experience is not just great, but it's delightful. Along with the things that Parvez mentioned, like how do we collect data in this privacy world where, people are hesitant to like provide more information? How do we build an ecosystem that does not push the organizational silos to a customer because they did not know that, okay, Sneha is from this team, Vanina is from marketing, Charis is from this, like they don't care. So how do we not let that organizational silos bleed into the customer experience? And how do we measure and close the loop on this feedback every time that we know more, because things are going to change. What we need to be prepared for is to understand those changes and close the loop so that every time we learn something more, we are able to adapt. And I totally agree with Parvez on, I think, the supply chain, which has played a very key role, where in the past, I think it was mostly during holiday season that supply chain used to become like a major hot topic where we're like, okay, are we ready? But now it's like every single day you got to make sure that, supply chain is like pretty strong to adapt to, the different flavors that we see of customer experience.
Great. So what I'm hearing is like stay customer centric, and whatever our organization is set up, what we care first is the customer. They should not suffer from any of those silo or strategies that might be attached to a specific department. So I'd like to talk now a little bit about loyalty programs. I mean, I know at Method we have multiple of our customers, clients who are working with us on loyalty programs. So ladies, I'm sure you have a loyalty program with Sephora. If not, I would be very surprised. So Sneha, since you guys are really, really good at this, can you talk a little bit about actually the program and what makes really a loyalty program successful, and what are the milestone and the steps and the different elements that need to be considered?
Sure. I think the definition of loyalty itself is also changing, right? Like in the past, when we were looking at loyalty programs, whether you take a Starbucks or Sephora or Walmart, I think it had a limited definition and scope of what loyalty meant, which was very transactional of like, you do XYZ, you get points, and then you move on. But what we've realized in the current knowledge that we have is that loyalty is more of a feeling than a particular method, right? Because any interaction that you have with the company, like you show that you are loyal to that company. Even if you interact with them, you add a review, you add a comment, you engage with the brand, you meet the beauty assistant inside the store. Anything that adds up to you engaging with the brand is basically what loyalty means. So with this new definition of what we feel like loyalty is, I think for all retailers, it's very important to understand what those touch points are beyond transactions that make like a person feel like they belong to the community and they're an extended part of the company itself. You're not building a loyalty for, a different set of customers. You're extending what you have to the customers as well. I think that's pretty important to know the trend, the change in the trend that I've seen. And the second thing is, how do you also add a bit of gamification to the loyalty, and how do you make sure that you are incentivizing customers to move on to the next step to make sure that they are engaged at the right level?
Yeah, lovely. So I know that at eBay, you guys have obviously a different approach, knowing that your business model is slightly different. But Karis, you have interesting output, I would say, about what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, eBay has had, I would say, more traditional loyalty programs in the past, but as we started really digging into what our customers, again, buyers and sellers, are really looking for, it really varies on the category. And frankly, it's +1 to all of the things that Sneha just said. It is really about the community. Our consumers, buyer and seller, I will talk to our buyers and sellers, and they can say the date that they left eBay, the date they came back to eBay. I mean, it's like an old boyfriend or girlfriend. They are that closely tied. I mean, how many people can say the last time I walked into name a store and I left that day because of this? I mean, that's how passionate people feel, about the platform. So we really looked and said, where do we truly have that? We are a platform for enthusiasts, and where are those communities and where can we start? So we really look at the programs on a category level and what's needed for that community. So for example, one of the programs we have is for our sneakers, sneakers area, and, sneakerheads are a community. And so for them, a lot of the loyalty is, sure, maybe having access to certain products, but sometimes it's just about having those right connection points. We have a wait list of tens of thousands of people, for this list, because people just kind of want to be a part of something, and being in it, they feel like they're part, of these communities. So it's not always about the financials, just as Sneha was saying. It really is about, am I a part of something? Does it feel inclusive but still exclusive at the same time?
Yeah.
And how do I really form that relationship, with the brand overall? So for us, we really try to think of what are the key things that we need at a category level. What really is driven? When we look at luxury, they like very fancy events, you know, it's not all about, you know, access to this product or that product. You know, for sneakers, it's saying that you are part of or getting to meet a certain person that's in the industry who maybe the rest of us wouldn't know, but they're a massive YouTuber, you know, something like that. So the way that we think about it is really on a category level, but more so than that, it's just about that community.
And Karis, just a question, as you were going through that journey about trying to find that right balance, are there any feedback you can have for all of us, but things that maybe didn't work as well, and that you learned from that, and you're like, well, you know, we learned from that and we changed our path?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have tried to take the same playbook and then see where it works. And it doesn't always for each category. You know, we have had other categories, like I said, in the luxury space that we looked at and said, okay, we've got to kind of iterate through this because the events and the exclusivity is more important. You know, on sneakers, it's kind of about feeling like you're part of an exclusive community, and in luxury, it's I want to be a part of that exclusive, you know, community. And so how do you create the right overall experience, the right end-to-end experience for that? So we learned that we can't take the same playbook and just, you know, throw in, okay, if we're going to provide exclusive product, let's do that for everyone. We learned that, you know, that's not always what it's about for all of these, for these different communities. So we continue to iterate through that, and the things that work, we see, we try them in other categories. If they don't, then we move on to something that's more related to the customer.
Thank you. So just to close on that topic, because obviously we're all very interested in this one. I can speak for myself at least. What I'm hearing is that, as you two are saying, it's not about the tier levels and how we are moving from one tier to the other by purchasing more, doing whatever. It's really about looking at the type of product. So in your case, you have different categories, but thinking about retailers where there is one big category, right, where there would not be a difference as strong as you might have at eBay, or I would say Sneha's case is probably a good one. So what I'm hearing is that really it's about taking into consideration the different clients and their aspiration, rather than really looking at what I'm doing as a corporation for making this program work, right? It's just like going back to the clients, going back to the customers, what do they like, how they like it, and then applying recipes to what works for them.
Yeah, and really leveraging what's your point of difference. For eBay, we allow our members, you know, we allow our buyers and sellers to connect with each other. A lot of platforms don't do that are marketplaces like that. You go and you don't really connect with the seller. You can't go and reach out to the seller and those types of things. So for us, that was really, that community piece is what, you know, is what kept us there. I'm not saying that's necessarily the same thing for every single retailer, but we all have kind of our own, you know, points of difference that you just want to put that on steroids and provide that access to those things that are your true like point of difference and core competency.
Lovely, thank you. So let's shift a little bit to technology, because here, I mean, at Meta, obviously we're all technologists. So I'd like you guys to tell us a little bit about the new technology or the technologies that you feel like are trendy or that need to be absolutely considered in the retail industry. So I don't know, Parvez, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know about trendy or sexy, but I think where I feel like there's still a lot of need for technology, I would say is kind of like something that historically has not been considered. Like, you know, I mean, people talk about, I don't know, virtual shopping, and they talk about like, you know, I don't know, 3D stuff. I mean, if you look at what retailers are facing right now, a lot of them are facing competition from Amazon. A lot of them are trying to figure out, how do I optimize my pricing? How do I optimize my delivery promise? What is the most cost-effective and most efficient way for me to get products to my customer in omnichannel fashion? So when I think of where I still see a lot of need for, like, you know, honestly, like, you know, decisioning, I think decisioning around real-time pricing, real-time delivery promise, order management, order routing. I think those are places where I still see a lot of lack of investment, and I feel like those are places where we are trying to figure out how to optimize stuff.
So the foundation,
Yeah, the foundation,
infrastructure
right? Yeah.
is still missing
Yeah.
as in the
Yeah.
retail industry in general.
Yeah, I think, and again, like, retail is detail, and all these things are significantly important for you to promise and deliver a frictionless customer experience while reducing what I call margin leaks. So I do feel like I do feel like those are places where technology for retail is still lacking, and we are trying to figure out who to work with. And then the last thing I would just say is, like, how do we work on marketplaces, like, not just to sell product, but as you can imagine, pretty much every marketplace, every retail now has a media network, right? That is becoming the next kind of like, place where profitable marketing investments are being made. I mean, if you think of paid search and PLA, I mean, those are becoming so expensive. Product search is now happening on Amazon.com and Macy's.com and all these, right? So I know, like, those are places where I still feel like there is some meaningful gap in terms of how we can scale and optimize.
Okay. So Sneha, if you don't mind going, covering the same topic.
Sure. I think the big technology trends that I'm seeing are one is hyper personalization, and I know personalization is not new. We've been talking about it for a long time, but I think the definition of what hyper personalization means and how it's now like one-to-one customer experience, and making sure that we are building it at scale in a way that resonates with the customer is what is becoming extremely important and table stakes for retailers. Content evolution, right? Like efficiencies of how we develop the content that can be reused across different use cases, even in this world, the 3D world, also in a scalable way. And how do we make sure that apart from driving incremental value, we are figuring out optimizing efficiencies in the way we generate content at the bottom line? And how do we make sure that this experience is not too expensive for us, I think is also pretty critical. And then sustainable technology, which is, I think we are all aware of, the responsibility that we have towards our planet and towards our environment, but how is the accountability shifting from a brand to an individual, and that each of us are still responsible for sustainability, even if it meant more of a brand play in the past and marketing play. At this point, it's more an individual responsibility, even if it means at a transactional level, what are you adding in terms of carbon footprint, I think is also becoming super crucial in terms of, the feeling that people have when they are purchasing things. So I think these are the three trends that I'm seeing evolve a little bit more.
Wonderful. Karis, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I think a big piece, and I think it layers on to what the other panelists talked about, anytime you touch a product, we need help. We still need room there. We still need more thoughtful automation, because it can't just be automation for sake. Otherwise, things are flying everywhere, or you're not really authenticating, and then you don't have the trust. So, in eBay's, we're constantly looking at, how does that work with authentication? Also attribution. There's a lot of companies out there that are doing different pieces of attribution. I know when one of our innovation leaders, when we talked about 3D and video and AI and all of that, and I said, that's great, can we use it for attribution? Like I have a lot of things I want people to be able to find my products. I want to create structured data. That's sexy to me. Fine, we can do all these fancy things on the other side, which they are important. I know for eBay, 3D is really important to us because if you're buying a used sneaker, and it's Michael Jordan's sneaker and the left side is a different size than the right, and you want to see that there's the scratch from when he played game 5 of the playoffs, you want to be able to know that's what you're getting. So for me, it's really about, how do we push that technology, but how do we use it for our common use cases as well as for the sexy stuff? I think we get very much into the sexy stuff, the virtual try-ons of the world. Spent a lot of time in that in my last life, at a brand, and put it in front of consumers and they're like, that's what I look like? Holy crap. Like, don't show me what I really look like. Like, don't show me myself. Show me that cute avatar that I think is me, And so it's like technology sometimes gets in its own way with by just trying to be great, trying to be super accurate. And sometimes customers are like, I don't really want accurate. I just want to kind of get a guideline. I want to get in the general vicinity. And how do we start to use that? So for me, it's like, yes, bring on all the fancy technology, but it better support some of the core things, my core problems that I'm having on the site.
So talking about sexy technology, let's talk about the metaverse.
Oh, yes.
It was so funny. So, Walmart announced like a couple of weeks ago that they are going into the metaverse and that they are embracing Roblox now and putting an experience there because they want to reach out to the younger generation. So what have you guys done, or how do you consider that, even if it's from your perspective, not as sexy, maybe that's some things that are fundamentals, but you want me to start? I know. Yeah, please.
Okay.
We're on your swing.
yeah. The way eBay, thinks about it right now is, and we'll see. We're all trying to figure this out, but we already have a platform, and we're also there to we create a platform for others to connect. We're not trying to be in the center of that platform. So what, our kind of real thoughts and first foray, and it has been in NFTs. So earlier this year, we acquired an NFT provider called Known Origin. They're based out of the UK, and we're really, just starting there. Can people buy, how do people buy? How do they sell, NFTs? And it is a really big deal in the collectible space, right? Especially when we think about art. And how do you think about the physical and the digital, that physical product and the digital? Do you do both? Do you do one? So we're really trying to understand, how does this concept of the metaverse and blockchain and all of that fit into this collector and enthusiast universe? It allows you to broaden, that art collection, you to broaden that collection of Funkos or trading cards or whatever, even sneakers, when you add those different layers in. So for us, it's what supports those kind of collectors and enthusiasts on the platform. So that's kind of where we've started to really think about and focus more on.
So NFTs. Sneha, I think you guys have done a little bit more, and I know that you're also working with some startups in the field specifically. So maybe you can give us some insight as well from the newcomers in the market.
So I think, as Charis mentioned, people are still trying to figure out what this means, where companies need to invest in. But I think in general, in retail world, understanding the why before investing in metaverse, I think is super important. Whether it means maybe we are not ready for a transactional incremental revenue, but is it more brand discoverability, and is it more engagement that we want through the metaverse, and building the foundational blocks so that you can then evolve the technology to where metaverse is heading. And foundational blocks, I mean, whether it's payment gateway that can accept like cryptocurrencies, or even content, as I mentioned earlier. How are you building your content for this virtual world? How are you also leveraging the same content inside your store for a AR experience that helps in the brand discoverability? And if you look at some of the numbers, like it's overwhelming to see how many people will be in this, metaverse world in the next coming years. How many people, like 25% of them will spend an hour in a day in the metaverse. So what does this mean for each company? And also understanding that maybe a company current customer base may not be metaverse ready, but is your strategy then to acquire the new customers who are already there in the metaverse? Is that a strategy that companies need to take? Because as I mentioned, you need to meet the customers where they are. So not being constrained in the box of like, hey, my customers are not suitable for this, so this might be a customer acquisition play. So I think understanding the why is super important for any retailer, and then building the foundational blocks.
I love when you're talking about the why, because I think we always have a lot of conversation here at the business design team about bringing the why to everything that we are doing, and not just like doing something for the good sake of doing it. So let's talk about another technology that again we've been three of us in the past life very involved with that. I'd like to talk about social commerce. We can see that it has exploded in Asia, and they are further along any of us here. But still, when it comes to just live stream, we are expecting a 25 billion, billion. You see, I impressed myself. Billion US dollars that are going to be generated by 2023 just with live stream commerce. So what, Sneha, can you talk a little bit about social commerce from your perspective?
Yeah, I think seeing how successful it has been in Asia and in other countries is definitely bringing a lot of attention here on what live streaming can bring to the table to the environment here. I think the key difference is to understand the context and the local involvement in the people on how this plays along. I know like in Asia, it's like 8 hour, 9 hour long live stream that goes on, versus here it's kind of like little short. And so understanding the nuances of how people want to interact with live streaming, as well as how do you build live streaming experience that augments the current experience that you already have, right? You're not creating a parallel experience that is competing with the experiences that you're building in the other channels, but you're augmenting what you can't provide in a real life or a in-store experience that you can provide through a live stream shopping. Can you have like your influencers or your brand ambassadors or your creators play a more pivotal role, I think is what companies are trying to figure out, as well as what else can you add in this live stream shopping that eventually, I know it all comes down to like conversion and, we are in the business, so we need money, but also like, how do you keep customers engaged through this localized nuances for each environment as well?
Okay, so Cheris, I mean, you guys have been one of the first to embrace that. So I'm sure you have a lot to share with us about this.
Yeah, I mean, for live commerce is really important to us. I think one of the, not watch outs is you need to get people there. I think the hardest part is getting people there. They're super engaged once they get on. We have started to dabble in different categories. We initially launched in trading cards. We're looking at our other categories, and again, +1 to Sneha, with all, you have to use kind of everybody, right? And for eBay, it's a great opportunity for us to show our influencers. So we'll put an influencer with a seller, so you're seeing kind of like, who am I buying? Not only what am I buying, but who am I buying from? Who's really enforcing it and is into this category as well? And how do we kind of use that engagement? So we find that people are super engaged once they get on the platform, but you have to gather. There's a lot of room for still gathering people, but we want to definitely explore it more and ultimately scale it more broadly. And it's a conversation everywhere. So I'm here in Vegas. I'm at another conference. That other conference is actually a reseller conference, and so I'm talking to resellers. And after I leave here, there is a panel for these sellers on how they can engage in live commerce. So even small sellers that are selling, call it $100,000 a year, are thinking about how they incorporate this. It's just something that it brings that personality, it brings that human element into it that you just can't really do with a lot of other, technologies. So I wholeheartedly agree with that number that you have out there.
Yeah.
I believe in that. I do think, we've got some ramp up to really be able to scale
Yeah.
it, but the opportunities are really significant, especially if you have the right technology behind it and the right marketing plan behind it.
Lovely. So let's talk about sustainability. Sneha mentioned about having sustainable technologies, but I know at eBay, you guys are very, very big in sustainability. So can you just explain a little bit about what are the initiatives and how you are targeting to that topic in general?
Yeah. Well, I mean, eBay is kind of the one of the originator of, call it the official resale used and new platform. I mean, I think when people think about eBay, they're like, wait, my grandma, I want to get back my grandma's doily that I lost, 20 years ago. Like, where can I find it? And you go on eBay, right? So that was kind of just naturally part, of our platform. But even more than that, when we look at a lot of our growth within the company, we see it in pre-owned products. We see it in used. And, I think we think a lot about the US, because the US, we're like, used is fine for certain things like a vacuum or this, but I don't want used clothing or shoes. Like, I'm not ready for that. The rest of the world is, especially in broader, Europe, they're ready. They want to buy more. And so you have that in other countries, but then you also have, even in the US, Gen Z. I mean, most of our growth has been driven in this space, has been driven by Gen Z, and Gen Z is driving more than 50% of the growth overall, within the industry in these products, whether it be in pre-loved clothing. I mean, teenage girls every Friday are swapping clothes. They're just doing clothing swaps, going on a Friday night, everybody bring their stuff and they're swapping clothes. Like, it's just kind of a natural part of what they do. And Gen Z, the way they think about it is like, why do if I can buy this and I can get it for a lower price and have the cool thing and not like trash the environment and have all this stuff going to Ghana if I send it to the Salvation Army or wherever. So it just is it's the right thing to do, but not in like I'm going to spend more money or I'm going to do this. So we feel like, eBay's always been sort of ready for this time. We're waiting for the US to catch up a bit, but we're seeing the momentum quite a bit. Yes, we look at carbon offsets and all of that. We're carbon neutral as of I believe 2021. I have to look at my number, but so we do look at that, but it's even more than that. It's kind of how do we allow a platform where people can purchase high quality products, that are used and new, whether it's getting a vacuum that has been certified by the brand or certified in another way, or again, whether it's buying like a vintage article of clothing or a car part that has been, blessed by the brand that's been used, in a former car. All of those things are, really kind of part of eBay's core competency. So it's something that we talk about in every single meeting we're in. And it's more about like, how do we remind people of this? Like, all this stuff has always been there, but how do we remind people of this? And how do we build the trust? And how do we kind of help move the US along that pre-owned is where it's at. We need to keep this stuff out of the landfills or we won't have we won't have a society, in the way we do it anymore.
Yeah.